So I get a lot of questions like, my SCOBY is brown. Is this normal? Usually the answer is yes. SCOBYs are funny little creatures and they're pretty strange looking, but it's definitely important to be able to recognize when something is off with your culture. With every batch that you make, just examine your SCOBY as you pour off the tea. So here are some important things to be aware of. The first is mold. So it's actually quite rare for the kombucha culture to mold, but you should still observe the SCOBY for any signs of mold when you decant it. Discoloration is not mold, so mold will usually look really fuzzy and it'll usually grow on top of the SCOBY. That said, if you do suspect mold, discard the batch immediately. So compost the SCOBY, clean the jar very well, and then you'll have to start a fresh culture. So hopefully you've been saving your SCOBYs in the SCOBY hotel. The next is fruit flies. So these are nasty little guys. I've actually had 2 fruit fly contamination issues. They can get in through the holes in the cheesecloth, and then they can lay eggs in the SCOBY. So I've actually had to throw out 2 whole batches of cultures because of fruit fly contamination. And the best way that I've found to avoid this is to use coffee filters instead. So I usually double up with 2 coffee filters, and it lets enough air in still while keeping the fruit flies out. Chlorine is another thing. It's best to use purified or filtered water for your kombucha because the chlorine in tap water can kill some of the healthy bacteria in the culture and throw the balance off. But I found that boiling tap water for about 10 minutes before adding my tea seems to work fine, and I haven't had any issues with this. The next thing is a bumpy or holy SCOBY. This is totally normal and it's caused by the gas byproducts of fermentation. As the yeast and the bacteria ferment the tea and the sugar, carbon dioxide is produced as a byproduct. This is actually what makes the tea fizzy. So the SCOBY creates kind of a seal on top of the jar, and then as the gases rise, it creates the bumps and the holes. And the next thing is discoloration. So usually the whiter the SCOBY, the less mature it is, and then as it gets more mature, it'll kind of go more of a brown color. I've seen a wide variety of different colors of SCOBYs. It's totally fine as long as it still makes still makes yummy tasting tea, then you should be totally okay. But that said, just be mindful that it's not mold, and if it is, like we mentioned, you'll have to just discard the culture and start again. But a range in colors is very normal for the SCOBY. So here are some care basics that you should know when brewing kombucha. The first is to use glass as your main brewing vessel for any storage of extra SCOBYs and for second stage fermentation. Do not use metal and avoid bringing the mother and the SCOBY in contact with metal. It's best to store kombucha in a dark, warm place where it won't be disturbed. The ideal temperature to keep the yeast bacteria balance in check is about 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. You should also allow for airflow in your main vessel and any other jars that hold SCOBYs. I've found that the coffee filters work best for this. Do not use antibacterial soap to clean any of the jars. Vinegar and water work best. However, I've never had any issues using a gentle, natural soap and rinsing really well afterwards with water. And never, never, never store SCOBYs in the refrigerator. And wash your hands very well every time you handle or touch the SCOBY.